Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. If you thought that the Democratic Party Titanic was sinking only because Joe Biden is steering the vessel, think again. A new poll shows that it's not just Biden who would be losing to Trump and other Republican candidates, but other traditional corporate Democrats that presumably the DNC machine thinks if they would just replace Biden with these folks, everything would be fine and we would avoid the orange menace coming back in to the White House. This is from the Washington Post, who has the poll results. It's fairly evident that both major political parties could be better off with leaders other than the men who seem destined to lead the 2024 ticket. But while there's an apparent alternative who might be considered more electable for Republicans right now, a new poll reinforces the fact that the matter is hardly so simple for Democrats. A Fox News poll, say what you want about Fox, their polling is usually pretty decent, is the first major survey to test multiple general election matchups, not just with different Republican candidates, but also with different Democrat ones. The poll is the latest to show former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley faring better than Trump against Biden, and this time by a significant margin. While Trump leads Biden by 4 points and DeSantis leads Biden by 5, Haley leads Biden by 11 points, 52% to 41%. That's a number that should cause Republicans to stand up and take notice. Might also be why a big reason Trump is refusing to debate, because he's probably most likely in his campaign, now that they have pretty much neutered Ron DeSantis and his culture war campaign, they are feeling threatened by Nikki Haley, who is another reprehensible corporate Republican, but sounds a lot more reasonable and palatable to independent voters and never Trumpers. But the real key to this poll is the Democratic alternatives to Biden. For Democrats, the difference are more negligible. While Biden trails Trump by 4 points, Vice President Harris trails Trump by 5. Shadow presidential candidate Gavin Newsom, who clearly has been running for president with the hopes that Biden will drop out or something will happen, he's down by 4 against Trump. Gretchen Whitmer, who reports show Biden actually wanted her as his vice president, but aides talked him out of it and said you have to pick Kamala Harris to secure, a strong black vote. Gretchen Whitmer is losing to Trump. And President Manchin, who Biden refused to stand up to throughout his whole term and allowed Manchin and Sinema to crush the child tax credit, among many other things. Manchin trails Trump by 1. Well, let me tell you, that shows 2 things. Number one, Biden is still the worst candidate to go up against Trump. It's pretty shocking that Biden is actually losing to DeSantis, too, who's running a god-awful campaign and clearly is a socially awkward cretin. But the fact that you have Whitmer, who has gotten nothing but fluffy, adoring media coverage. I got some things on Whitmer in a minute. Newsom, who's much younger than Biden, attractive guy, has the full head of hair, has done some decent things in California recently, I think, trying to cater to progressives in the event that he were to replace Biden on the ticket, like manufacturing his own insulin in the state, among other things. The fact that he's losing to Trump by 4? Maybe it's not just Biden. Maybe it's Biden plus that the Democrats abandoned every single promise that they made to build back better. $15 minimum wage, Biden abandoned. Is Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, Whitmer impressing anybody? That if you just give them a chance, they're going to come in and fight for a $20 minimum wage, a $25 minimum wage, which frankly, we need to start now at 25. 15 is the conservative position, if you ask me. Harris, if it's just that Biden's too old, wouldn't a much younger candidate in Harris, who's already the sitting vice president, be polling better against Trump? Polling worse. Manchin, nobody likes Manchin. He's about less popular than lice. But the fact that Newsom and Whitmer, who are governors, who the consultant class of the Democratic Party think tanks and MSDNC adore, that there have been columns written about them as the top of the Democratic bench. The fact that they're losing to a four-time indicted president. And sure, these are national polls. We don't know the swing states. Presumably, Whitmer would be doing better in Michigan versus Trump. She's fairly popular in Michigan because the media does not actually inform the residents of Michigan about how corrupt and awful she is. Speaking of Whitmer and corruption, it's from the Detroit News. Whitmer-aligned nonprofit raised $13 million from secret donors last year. You don't say. A nonprofit organization closely tied to the Michigan governor Gretchen Whitmer raised $12.9 million last year from contributor whose names didn't have to be disclosed publicly, according to a tax filing released Wednesday. The group called Road to Michigan Future. She did promise to fix the damn roads in Michigan. Well, I've been there semi-recently. Haven't been fixed. Which has actively supported Whitmer's policies since 2020, reported spending $19.2 million in 2022, the year when the Democrats successfully campaigned for a second term in the state's top office. The nonprofit collected in 2022 about twice as much money as it did in previous years, and it raised in 2022 about 10 times what former criminal Governor Rick Snyder, I added that, similar New Energy to Reinvent and Diversify Fund did. Snyder's Nerd Fund, which drew waves of criticism for its secret operations, raised $1.3 million in 2011, its most successful year. So the Democrats of Michigan and America were critical of Rick Snyder for good reason, for his secret donors. I don't really hear anything about Gretchen Whitmer's secret donors raising about $13 million. That's not to mention the fact that Gretchen Whitmer, I did not see this on MSNBC. Did you know that she had emails coming to her office in Greek from a consultant to try and hide the emails from Freedom of Information requests? You cannot make this up. Michigan Democrat Gretchen Whitmer's office received a coded email related to her administration's response to a local water crisis in an apparent attempt to hide the sensitive communications from the public, a lawsuit alleges. The email was disguised in Greek alphabet font and sent by Andrew Levitt, a consultant to Michigan's Energy Department, to Whitmer's senior energy advisor, Kara Cook. Hot off the presses, as I warned, there are some major red flags. It seems like we are back at square one, having not learned from Flint, read Levitt's decoded email in Greek font, which was first reported by the Washington Free Beacon. Well, devil's advocate, you could say, Jordan, she's better than that criminal poisoner, Rick Snyder. Well, if that's your bar, you need to raise your bar. I agree, she's better than Rick Snyder, but, you know, that's like saying, well, you know, I don't know. I don't have a good analogy. You get the point. We didn't even get to how she abandoned her promises to the people of Flint, who still don't have clean water after 10 years. And Attorney General Dana Nessel literally just dropped the Flint investigation. No justice for the people of Flint after 10 years. Not a word from Gretchen Whitmer. Also not a word from Gretchen Whitmer about the corporate poisoning of the citizens, mostly Black, of Kalamazoo, Michigan, which I covered on the ground there, thanks to graphic packaging emitting toxic levels of natural gas in a poor Black community that left myself and my cameraman dizzy with headaches for days, just being next to the plant. I'll tell you what, right now, we know that there have been polls and surveys showing that if the election were held today, Trump would lose. Biden would lose to Trump. And these polls showing Whitmer down to Trump by 2, Newsom down to Trump by 4. Sure, you could say, well, Jordan, they're not official candidates yet. If they were official candidates, it would be a lot different. They're basically within the Whitmer's within the margin of error. Newsom's within shouting distance. The fact of the matter is, the New York Times poll Siena poll showed a generic Democrat, unnamed Democrat, would be beating Trump by 8 points. So the fact that when you name the Democrat, Whitmer or Newsom, they are not beating Trump by 6 points, 7 points, 8 points. They're losing. That's a problem. That might show you that it's not just a Biden problem. It's a Democrat problem. It's that independent voters and younger voters who Biden is losing, as well as black voters who Biden has been losing support of. In the New York Times Siena poll that showed Biden losing 5 of the 6 swing states, 22% of black voters were supporting Trump. Latino voters have been running away from the Democrats in favor of Republicans. Maybe the fact is you could replace Biden with a younger woman or a younger man, but the voters just haven't seen enough from Democrats on pocketbook issues, inflation, working class support for labor, and with Trump's insanity more in the rearview mirror because he's not been president, even though he thinks he's still president, with abortion and the overturning of Roe v. Wade mattering in midterm elections and off-year elections, but maybe less so in the presidential election. It's right now, it looks like if it were Gretchen Whitmer, if it were Gavin Newsom, which it might be, looks like a toss-up to me. And that should be scary. I personally think if it was a progressive populist candidate replacing Biden, whether you're unhappy with him or not, a Bernie Sanders or, I don't know, so few actual progressive these days. Bernie, even a squad member who's not my cup of tea right now, but certainly better than other corporate Democrats. If Cornel West, it's tougher slide with him running as an independent. If he would have ran the Democratic primary, if there was a progressive candidate replacing Biden as the Democratic nominee, I think you'd have a much better chance of beating Trump or other Republicans. And I'll tell you why. When was Biden's poll numbers highest? After the COVID relief bill, after they passed the child tax credit, which gave hundreds of dollars to low-income families, put food in the bellies of poor people, poor children, cut child poverty significantly until Biden allowed it to expire a year later because he didn't have the courage or presidential leadership to publicly crusade against Joe Manchin, who was the obstacle to extending that. I'm telling you, May Day right ahead, and I don't want to hear anything about Russia. I don't want to hear anything about progressives. This is a corporate Democratic Party illness. And the fact that Trump is beating all of these people should be alarming.